Okay, so I don't even know how to start this. I've been like spending weeks writing out scripts, outlines, trying to think of like what I wanted to say, and I was sitting here trying to do that again, and I just realized that there was like never going to be a script or an outline that was going to make this easy or flow or probably even make sense. So if it's a little rambly, that is why, because I don't even know what I want to say or what I'm going to say or what there is to say, but I know that it's important. I know it's important for me to just talk about because I'm not the best at like talking about my feelings. And I also think that it's important for me to share with all of you because you guys have been such a big part of my life for the last like year. And I know that like things have changed and I've been talking about things on Instagram stories and here like my background has changed, and I don't know if anyone notices those things, but if I did notice it, I would think that it was weird that like I hadn't said anything about it. So I want to be able to talk to that. So I want to be able to talk to you all about that, share what's been going on in my life, and kind of give you some explanations on things and a background to some of the content that I do want to make. So yeah. So as you could already probably tell from the title of this video, Liz and I broke up. It was about a month ago, but a month before that, I had come out here to my mom's house. That's why suddenly this background just completely changed, because we decided that it was good for us to kind of take a step back, take a break, and just work on our relationship and decide where we wanted to go next. Quarantine was really hard for both of us. We live in a very small apartment. We lived, eek, whew. We lived I didn't think I was gonna cry this quickly, or I would have filmed when I didn't have any makeup on. Okay. Oh, perfect. I didn't even plan this. We lived in a very small apartment, and both of us started working from home. I was unemployed for like 6 weeks before I moved into a new position, but even then a lot of it was being at home. And then when I quit that and I did the HEB full time, that was all at home. And we only had one bedroom, which meant we only had one room for an office because she needs to be on the phone working because she needs like her own privacy, working on the phone, doing her work. I need my own privacy. I need to be able to film. And it was just a lot. So we were both working within the same like 700 square feet constantly. We were together constantly, but it felt like we had so much together time, but no quality time together. Work faded into home life faded into work life. Everything just felt the same. And that was fine when it was going to be a few weeks, but as we all know, it was not just a few weeks. And we just kind of got into this point where we weren't really appreciating each other. We felt like roommates who were coexisting. And that was really hard for us. So I had come to visit my family. I don't even know when it was. July? This whole like last month has just been a blur. So I think like end of July, I'd come for a week to visit my family before we had talked about anything regarding taking a break or having some space. And I came back from that hoping that like with that week of space, it would help us to be able to like regulate and get back into the swing of things and to feel closer together. And quickly we both realized that wasn't happening. So within a couple days of me being back, I flew out to Missouri, stayed in Missouri, where I am now, where I'm from, for a week, flew back to Michigan. We decided that we needed more time apart. So within a few days, I had to pack up the car, get everything ready, pack up as much stuff as I could fit in the car, figure out how I was going to transport both cats just by myself in that car, and drive back to Missouri. And we figured we would give it a month, work on ourselves, work on our relationship, figure out what we wanted. We didn't have any attachments for staying together. We didn't have any attachments for breaking up. We just wanted to see how things went. So that was really hard, obviously. And I pretty much just spent a week. My family at that point had happened. It would like coincided with them being on vacation in Florida. So I had this house to myself for a week, and I just kind of spent that decompressing and figuring things out, reading a lot of books, doing a lot of research, journaling, just like really spending some time with myself to figure out what I wanted. And we had had some conversations, and it's not my full story to tell, so I don't want to share too much of a story that isn't fully mine with the internet. But I do think it's also important to talk about, just in case you're feeling similarly to how I am, or if you're struggling with certain things in your relationship, just know you're not alone. This last year has been hard on everyone, and I think it's been really, really hard on relationships as well. So after talking back and forth while I was here, we'd had some really good talks, and honestly some talks that were the most vulnerable and real conversations that we've probably had in the 4 years that we've been together. And our relationship has had a rough history as well. So that was just like kind of all coming up too. There was a lot of stuff that we hadn't dealt with, we hadn't talked about. And it had just kind of been things that it was known that they were issues, but we always just kind of moved past it. We tried therapy. We had tried a bunch of different things to try to figure out this disconnection that had happened in our relationship. And it was so hard because I didn't know when it was the right choice to stay and try to make things work, even though I felt so lonely in the relationship, and I knew that she did too. But I also didn't want to be someone who gave up on relationships. I've done that a lot in the past. It's the longest relationship I've ever been in. We built a life together. We had cats together. We had an apartment together. We had rings, planning to get engaged. And it's hard to know when you've given it all and when you still need to give more. And that's what I was struggling with, honestly, for a really long time. And for the longest time, I just convinced myself that I just needed to try harder. I knew that there were things that I needed to give to the relationship, and that if I could just do those things and keep working on our relationship and reading books and going to therapy and trying to figure out where the disconnection was happening, then it would just work. And I finally sat down with myself, and honestly, one of the biggest things, and she's gotten me through so much in my life, is Glennon Doyle. She wrote Untamed, but her first 2 books, I fell in love with her when I was 18. And she's been there through a lot of I guess she hasn't. And her books have helped me get through a lot, because I feel like I relate to her a lot, and she puts words to things that I'm feeling. And she in Untamed has this concept of listening to your knowing, which is just that gut feeling, that true voice in your head that always knows what to do if you can listen to it. But a lot of times we don't know how to listen to it because we're told by the world to kind of shut it up to fit what we need to be, what the world expects us to be. We need to look outside for answers rather than inside. And I finally just like sat with that for a while, and it was really hard at first because I remember when I was younger having such good intuition and just knowing when things were right. And I think that as I was growing up, I lost that. I started looking for answers in other people and other things rather than inside of myself and what I knew to be right. And because of that, I couldn't hear that voice in me anymore. It was like I buried it so deep. I was struggling and just kept trying to dig and dig and dig until I got to it to get it out. And finally, I just like sat with it for a while. And after a conversation that we had, it just rushed over me that I knew it was over. And I knew that it wasn't good for us to be together anymore, and it wasn't the right thing for me or for her. And that we had really grown a lot, and I give her so much credit. She's grown so much. I've grown so much. But we still have a lot of growing to do, and I think the growing that we have to do needs to happen separately. I don't think that's necessarily the case for everyone, but I just knew. So we talked for a really long time. And honestly, one of the things that I think I knew for a while, I know that my knowing was trying to get me to listen, and I just kept shoving it down because I would start spiraling into these what ifs, like, or what would happen next, or what this would do. Like, I have a full channel full of 500,000 people who know me and know my relationship. I've talked about how videos with her are coming, videos on budgeting in a relationship, how we split up our finances, how to navigate those conversations. And you guys were asking about those, and I just didn't have an answer for you because I couldn't really talk about it yet because I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what the answer was going to be. And I don't even know where I was going with that. But I realized that what was stopping me was my worries about the future, rather than taking a look at what I needed and what I wanted. So anyway, we had that conversation that was about 3 weeks ago. And again, it was hard because I haven't been uploading as consistently, and I just feel like I haven't been as creative because all of my emotional energy has been going into getting through this, trying to not emotionally shut down. Because in the past, that's what I would do. I would just say it was fine, get over it, emotionally shut down, forget about it. And I didn't want to do that this time. I wanted to feel it. I wanted to live the whole thing and come out closer to the person that I really am, come out stronger, have learned some things. And that has taken so much energy. And it just sucked, like, not being able to talk to you guys about it. Not being able to share what I was going through when I was going through it. But I knew that was important. I knew that I needed to grow before I came out and told the internet what was going on. But it's just like the weirdest experience. And now it's kind of gotten to the point that it's like, okay, now I need to figure out what I'm going to do next. Because the original plan was I was just going to be here for a month. I have a lot of my stuff, but I have a very small car, so I don't have any of like the big stuff. And that's all the way up in Michigan, and I'm here, and I still have a lot of things to do for my business, and I have a lot of things to work on, and I don't know what I want to do next. So I think that it's important that I mention how grateful and how much of a privilege I know it is that, like, I have been able to work whenever I felt like it and take a step back when I needed it. I was able to pack up and move to Missouri, something I would not have been able to do a year ago because I had a job I needed to physically be at. have a place to stay at home. I have a home that has a room for me and space and the ability for me able to be here for as long as I want. And I know that that is a huge privilege, and I'm so thankful for that, because I don't know what would have happened if we didn't have that opportunity to get space. I don't know what things would look like. But I wanted to come on here and talk to you all about that, because I didn't think that it was fair for me to just like continue on and suddenly I'm in this new place, and then I want to be able to talk about like what finances are going to look like after a breakup, because I have a feeling other people probably deal with that or will deal with that or are dealing with that, and it's hard. That was one of the things that stopped me for the longest time, was this feeling of like, okay, but then if you break up, you've got to figure out a place to live. What's going to happen with the rent? How are you going to make sure that you're making enough money to pay your bills? What's going to happen with your joint account? And just all of these like technical what ifs that stopped me, when really these are manageable things. They're things that can get taken care of. People deal with it every day, but they're things that I've never had to go through before in a relationship. And that's really hard. So I want to be able to share that with you all. And I didn't think that it would make much sense for me to just hop into a video about managing finances after a breakup without making a video explaining at least somewhat what happened and how I was feeling and what I was going through. So who knows what's going to happen next? I definitely do not. Here at some point, I'm filming this before I've gone up to get the rest of my stuff. So that's on my list of things to do. For now, I plan on just living at home until I can figure out what next steps I want to take, figure out where I want to live next. I'm so grateful that I have so much flexibility in that. And I'm honestly really excited for these next steps. I was someone who bounced from relationship to relationship, thing to thing, and I haven't spent more than a few months by myself. And most of that was spent me not processing the relationships before that had happened. And I'm so excited that I am able to take this time to just, I can do whatever I want. Like, I can move wherever I want. I can spend all of my money however I want. I can spend all my time however I want. And that for me is so freeing, because I am such a free spirit. I am someone who enjoys her alone time and her freedom. And I often kind of resort to people pleasing and just morphing myself into whoever the other person in my life needs me to be. I do this with relationships, friendships, my family, work, everything. And I realized I was doing that for so long that I lost who I really was. And I feel like the last part of 2020 and this part of 2021 has been the biggest year of growth for me, and the point in time that I started to realize that I wanted to figure out who I was again, and that I missed that, if I even ever was who I actually am. I don't even know if there has been a point in time that I've truly allowed myself to just be myself. And I want that. And I feel like I've been working toward that. I mean, I've burnt pretty much everything to the ground that doesn't fit who I know I am and what I know to be true and what I know to be the most beautiful thing for me. And I think that it was a big step for me to realize that this relationship was something that needed to burn too. And again, going back to Glennon Doyle, because literally Untamed has like gotten me through this breakup and just this last year in general. It really hit me when she was talking about this concept of, when she was talking about how she would have women who called in with all of these different scenarios. A woman who had a sick child, and a woman who was struggling in her marriage, someone who was struggling with drinking and asking for advice. And her response was, what is the most beautiful life? What is the most beautiful story about blank that you can imagine? And when I started thinking about that and started thinking about like what the most beautiful story of my life would be, I realized that my relationship no longer fit into that. And it's a certain type of hard, because every relationship I've had, it didn't end on good terms. It didn't end, there was a very distinct reason it was ending. Something major happened that caused that. So it's so hard to rationalize in my mind that it doesn't necessarily have to be that the person is a bad person, or they did an awful thing, or that there's a very concrete reason that the relationship is coming to an end. Sometimes it's just that no longer fits. It's no longer true enough to who you are and the life that you want to live. And I finally realized that I wanted to be someone who was strong enough and brave enough to let the thing that I held onto so closely and so tightly fall away in order to be the person that I want to be. And in order to know, and in order to do what I knew was the right thing, I finally decided that I was going to choose myself. I finally decided that I was going to choose myself over everything. And it's hard because it's the opposite of what I've done most of my life. But doing that, not like giving all of myself to make sure that everyone else was happy and taken care of, didn't serve me, and it didn't serve anyone else either, even though I thought that it would. And it took a lot for me to realize that. And not only realize it, because I think that, like, I can think back and I know that I realized it on some level, but to act on it. Leaving my relationship and getting through it and sitting in that pain is the hardest thing I've ever done. But it's also the truest thing I've ever done. It's the right kind of hard. And that was such an important thing for me to realize. Because I think I always thought that the next right thing, the right decision would be the one that just flowed the easiest and the universe set up and everything would just fall into place. And sometimes that's been true for things in my life. But a lot of times I don't think it has been, and I've just ignored it and gone a different direction. And I think the universe just kind of kept me coming back to it and presenting these opportunities and people and things in my life that gave me a chance to be true to myself. And this was one of those things, and it's a hard one. But when I realized that a hard thing can also be the right thing, that's when I finally kind of came to terms with all of this and realizing that it's okay that it's hard. As long as it's what I know in my heart to be true. So, I don't have any words of wisdom. If you're going through this too, or something similar, or if you just relate on any level, just know that I am holding space for that because I know how hard it is. And if you're in a relationship that you know it's true to leave and you just can't get yourself to, I also understand that and have been there. So we can do hard things. We can even do the hardest things. It's just kind of what I keep telling myself. And I'm really excited for some of the content that I have planned, and I'm excited to see what happens next. And to be able to look back at this and see how far I've come and see the kind of person that I've become. I don't know how to end this. I didn't know how to start it either, but here we are. So yeah, thank you all so much for being here for me these last, and I want to thank you all for being here this last year and the support and encouragement that you've given me. I am so lucky to be able to say that, like, I truly am living my dream and living my truest life imaginable. And a lot of that is thanks to you guys for giving me this platform, for supporting me, for loving me, encouraging me. And I love you all so much. So yeah, I know this is not the normal content that I usually make. If you made it all the way through, thank you. Thank you for sitting through all of my mess. I guess it's not mess. Thank you for sitting through all my feelings and for holding space. The content to come is going to be on a much lighter note, hopefully, and hopefully going to be really helping you as well if you are in a similar situation. And I have some super exciting things to announce hopefully here soon that I have been working on that I'm really excited to share with you all. So I will see you all next time. Bye.